The VVN Music interviews are brought to you by VVN Music. Get the latest news on the veteran artists of rock, pop, soul, country, folk, and blues at vvnmusic.com. And by audible.com. Now you can get a free book download from their library of over 180,000 titles by going to audibletrial.com/VVN. Hi, and welcome to episode 52 of the VVN Music Interviews. I'm Roger Wink, and today our guest is Gary Brooker of Procul Harum. Gary started a group called the Paramounts in 1962 with his friend, guitarist Robin Trower, scoring a couple of minor hits in England. In 1966, he founded Procul Harum, and right out of the box, they had an international hit with A Whiter Shade of Pale. Procul Harum were known for their classical music influences and being one of the earliest bands to incorporate orchestral arrangements, but their sound also contained elements of blues and soul music. When Procul Harum broke up in 1977, Brooker played with a number of artists, most notably Eric Clapton in the early 80s. By 1991, Procul Harum was back together and regularly recording new material, including 2017's Novum. The band's latest is a big 8-disc box set covering their career. Still, there'll be more. Well, congratulations on the new album. The new album comes out on Friday, and as far as I know, that's about the most comprehensive box that you've ever put out for the band, correct?
Yes, I think it's the best package that there's ever been, really. I mean, people have put out, the best ofs and the put things together and that, but this is, it's a very comprehensive lineup of CDs of recorded things from 67 up to 2017. There's DVDs in the package as well, which are quite interesting, and there's a wonderful book in it.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the book. It is pretty amazing. I mean, especially with the track-by-track annotation and everything. Were you involved with the writing of the book? No. I just, my wife's a good archivist for me, and she found, I should say, a lot of photographs and posters and newspaper articles and things, which have ended up being scattered around things. But it's either, I think Patrick Humphreys wrote some of the book, and Roland Clare has written some of the comprehensive look at the different tracks that are on there. These are people that know their Procul. I know 3 of the discs on the set are basically archive material from all of your albums. The other 5 CDs and DVDs are all live material and broadcast appearances and all. Did you have a lot of this in your archives, or did you have to track down the live shows?
No, I had some of it already around, just waiting for the right day, the right company that would be, want to have it all. They were interested. Esoteric were very interested in whatever I had, So finding all the posters, finding all the photographs, and finding also what tapes were knocking about was all part of doing it. And the presentation of it in the end was marvelous. I've only had it a few days myself.
Did you have to do a lot of restoration as far as the tapes of the live shows and all, especially, well, of course, since it did come from the area of actual audio tape?
Well, I leave that to the experts, actually. But it is, it's what we call remastered. In other words, if I had found a quarter-inch tape at home, well, for A, you have to treat those very carefully in case they fall apart. And B, you just have to check that the actual sound of them couldn't perhaps be made slightly better overall. Nothing remixed from original multitracks or anything like that.
Is there a lot of other archive material available for possible future releases that you know of?
Well, I think they could have they could probably do another entire set one day, but we'll have to see. I mean, they had to choose. I mean, you have to stop somewhere with all this stuff in a package. You can't have it, endless. You couldn't have 25 CDs in it, or you can't have 15 DVDs either. Yeah, it has to stop somewhere. But there's a bit more around.
I'd like to go back to the beginning with you. A Whiter Shade of Pale was your first hit, but you'd actually been on the British charts a few years earlier with the Paramounts that included Robin Trower, who also joined you in Procul Harum, correct?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, well, I think we'd been playing since we were at school. I've been playing with Robin, and we turned professional, I think, in about 1963. And the Paramounts went on, I think, till 1966. It seemed a very, very long time. Of course, at the end of the day, if we started when we were about 13, it wasn't all that long.
How did the original lineup of Procul Harum come about, other than you and Robin?
Well, what do you call the original lineup?
The group that recorded your first album.
Okay. Well, B.J. Wilson was also a Paramount. Yeah. What happened was that Procul Harum, when it first was ready to make a record, we thought, it was myself, Dave Knights was on the bass, Matthew Fisher was on the organ, and we had another guitarist and drummer. In fact, when we went to the studios and started making our first album, the producer thought that, in fact, they weren't quite cutting it. Once you got into the very demanding situation of being in the studio and making an album. So he said, "I don't think we can carry on with these two. We'll have to replace them." I couldn't think of anybody else. The only people I could think of was B.J. Wilson on the drums and Robin Trower on the guitar. Perhaps because I knew them and they were old mates. And I can't remember if anybody else came along and tried out, but Robin and B.J. came up and played with Procul, and the producer was there, and he said, "No, these guys are great. Okay, that's it." So that was really our first, that's what made the first record, and went on.
You came right out of the box with a Whiter Shade of Pale, which went straight to number one. Did you feel that was a bit of a tough standard then that you set for yourself as far as follow-ups, having started out practically right at the top?
Well, I certainly started out at the top, but what better place to start? I mean, you've got to move up from there. I mean, the thing was that it was internationally known as well. We weren't just talking about the UK or even America. It was internationally known, so it was a massive smash. But it was, apart from the fact that it was very different, I think it also came along at a certain time in the atmosphere of things.
Yeah, it definitely had a different sound from anything else that you heard on the radio at the time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah. It still does if you hear it today.
Yeah, definitely. Two of your best-known early songs are Whiter and A Salty Dog, which are both songs of the sea, and I know there's a couple other ones. Was there something that drew you to writing music about ships, the sea, and so forth?
Well, I mean, some of that's in the lyrics, of course, Keith Reid's lyrics. And I'd grown up by the sea. I was never a sailor, but I'd grown up by the sea, and to stare out at an ocean or an estuary or anything always was just quite calming, and it gives you a lot of movement. If suddenly something is set on a ship, or it's tales of, pirates or whatever, then you got drama. It can be calming, or it can be violent and dramatic. It's all involved there. in things that can happen on the sea. Sounds a bit vague. I know. I'm sorry.
How did you come up with the very, at least as far as I'm concerned, the haunting arrangement for A Salty Dog?
Oh, it was purely out of my head, really. I mean, it started off. I wrote it very quickly, actually, because it starts off on what is almost a discord, the first bar. That, in fact, I was playing the piano and I heard a train go by. It was in Europe, so it was in Switzerland, I think. A train went by and sounded its horn, and it was one of those big blasts, to scare and get something out of the way. And I copied what I'd heard just onto the piano right there and then, and that was the first call of A Salty Dog. So it came from a train whistle, not a ship's whistle, unfortunately. And then I resolved it, and when it was written, it was very different and very interesting. It seemed that it worked very well on the piano. Quite unusually, Matthew Fisher couldn't seem to think of anything to play. Robin Trower couldn't. So we were still there. I mean, B.J. Wilson actually did think of something to play. He absolutely lived A Salty Dog. He could play drums to it in a very dramatic way. But I just thought, either I thought or somebody said strings would be good on this. And so I thought I'd write an orchestration for strings. And I learnt a little bit about it. So I didn't give the job to somebody else. And I didn't just follow this or that. I thought about it carefully and came up with it. And that was the start of quite a few more orchestrations as well.
It's my understanding that you wrote the orchestration for Conquistador while you were traveling by plane up to Edmonton to actually do the recording that became the Live with the Edmonton Symphony Orchestra album. Did you have formal training in arranging, or was it something that you just picked up along the way?
No, I picked it up, so I was self-taught.
And you actually wrote out the orchestrations, did all of the charts and everything?
Yes.
That's pretty amazing, actually, that obviously somebody musical can think of these things and so forth, but to know all of the different instrument registrations and things like that.
Oh, well, you just have to learn it. Obviously, you have to. I mean, I learned it. I learned a lot on doing A Salty Dog. But I actually had a friend that was a viola player, and he would advise me. If I say, look, well, I'm doing it for two violins, viola, cello, and that. I did have to learn where an instrument sounded. They make different sounds in different registers. That's the trouble. In that you got to know that to make the richness of sound, or to make them sound high and squeaky. So you have to take all that in. And of course, once you get to a bigger orchestra where you've got French horns and you've got trumpets and trombones and woodwind instruments, then there's a whole lot more to learn.
Absolutely. You were the first band to actually tour with a symphony orchestra. Now, were the players in the orchestra actually on the road with you, or did you use any pickup musicians in the different cities that you went to?
No, we've never done that. No, we've played with many orchestras over the decades, or over the 50 years, but we've never. I mean, I say we've never done it. We have toured Denmark with the Danish Radio Orchestra and a big choir, but I think that Denmark's not a very big country, and I think that many nights they drove back to Copenhagen.
So that first tour that you had with the orchestra, you were actually using symphonies from around England then?
Well, we didn't do a tour. When we had the Edmonton live in Edmonton, whatever it was called, we did not tour with an orchestra at all. I mean, looking back, we should have. Even if it was a smaller orchestra, we should have had it there. I said we had a top 5 album, but people came to see us, but they didn't see what they'd bought in that top 5 album.
During the time through the late 60s and then most of the 70s, Procul Harum went through a number of changes as far as the lineup goes. Was it hard retooling all the time? Not all the time, but on a fairly regular...
No, it's not all the time. I've always been there. Up till 1977, B.J. Wilson was always there. We had a change after A Salty Dog, where Fisher went, because he never liked playing anyway. He never liked touring. He went, and we in fact changed the bass player at that time as well. And we got Chris Copping in, who had been a Paramount actually, and he played both bass and organ. And then we had a change. Dave Ball came in, and because Robin Trower left after Broken Barricades, Dave Ball came in, and then Mick Grabban came in. So it's sort of changing. I think we've had 3 guitarists in that first decade. I suppose we had 3 guitarists and we had 3 different organists at different points. Everybody else seemed to stay more or less the same.
Your current lineup, though, has been together for somewhere around 25 years, right?
Yeah, the most recent arrival is probably Jeff Dunn on the drums, but he's been with us over a decade.
You've said in the past that your vocals on the Edmonton Symphony Orchestra album were probably some of your favorites as far as over the years. What was the magic that happened during those shows?
Well, that was really the first time that we had played with a symphony orchestra and a choir. And so you can imagine, you've rehearsed, you've written all this stuff out. All you've got to do is now hear it. You've got it in your imagination, and I've written all the orchestral parts and the choir parts, but to actually sit there on stage and hear this sound coming out was very, very special indeed. And of course it was quite nerve-wracking, and there was a lot of adrenaline flowing. And I think, if you were a sprinter, and they said, on your marks, get set, go. Adrenaline pumps through you, and you run faster than you've ever run. And I think the same probably goes if you're singing. The adrenaline pumps through you, you can hit notes and more confidently and higher even than you have before. Doesn't do any harm anyway.
There was a period of, I think it was around 14 years where Procul Harum wasn't together, and you went out, you did some solo work, and you also played in Eric Clapton's band. How did it come about that you started playing with Eric?
Well, he was a near neighbour of mine in England, and I had played with him, or he had been playing with me in doing blues in pubs. That was our association at that point, and we got on very well. I knew all the tunes that he knew, and he knew all the tunes that I knew. So whenever one of us started something up, the other one knew what was going to be played, and we tackled it with gusto or with enjoyment. One day he just said, "Would you like to come play in my band?" So I said, "Yeah, that'd be nice." I wasn't doing much. So I did. I went and played with Eric's band. No, I was with him sort of about 1980 to about 83 or something like that.
Your voice is still amazing. Is there anything that you've done over the years to keep everything in shape?
Well, just you have to be careful. You've got to smoke the right tobacco, drink the right alcohol, not too much of either. I don't truthfully do anything, but I'm quite careful. So you can't, these days especially, you can't burn the candle at both ends and expect you to be able to sing 5 nights in a row, singing for 2 hours or more. You have to just bear in mind that, if you abuse yourself, then you're going to pay. And you've got to sing every night. All you need is something to go wrong, like to get a cold or something like that, and it can all go wrong. So you have to just be very careful.
The title of the new album is Still There'll Be More. Will there be more?
Well, at this moment there is, but it's still more of, I mean, this is a massive anthology, from over 50 years. It's a great time to have it out because, we just celebrated 50 years of Procul Harum, so it's the best time to have it out. And it's a very well put together package. So, yes, there will be more, I can assure you of that. I mean, some of the last tracks on this anthology or package are from 2017, studio tracks, I believe. So we're still there. I mean, our intention is, yes, there will be more, but I don't think we want to leave it too long before want something new. We'd like to get into the studio again in the very near future and put down some more new songs. Just keep that going.
It keeps everything fresh, I'm sure.
It keeps it fresh. It's good to play. I mean, Procul play past repertoire very well, and it's always interesting because they seem to be interesting songs. Right. If they were boring to play or sing, we wouldn't do them. They just would not be there. And if there are any boring ones, then you won't hear Procul play them. Then, yeah.
You mentioned that it's the 50th anniversary of Procul. If I'm not mistaken, it's also the 50th anniversary of your marriage. And that's something that should definitely be commended as far as not only in general, but especially in the world of rock and of music. What was what do you think the key was to making it 50 years?
Well, I think, things have to be right, don't they? You have to pick the right woman, and she has to pick the right man. And they have to go together in some way. You've got to ride through any upsets you may have, but we've never had a great big upsets at all. There's never been other women, there's never been other men. Your wife has to be a supporter, and especially in rock. I don't think if you're a wife, and my wife certainly isn't, but I don't think you could be jealous. You can't have any jealousy in you because your man's sometimes going off, he's far away for weeks at a time and meeting lots of different people, women even. But so you have to trust somebody, and if you were jealous and you thought, I wonder if he's been doing this or that, life would be a nightmare. And my wife, bless her, has never been like that. Now, we've been together since before Procul Harum. In other words, there'd been never any question that she married me because I was a famous musician.
Speaking of being away for a long period of time, is there any chance that you'll be coming over and touring the U.S. anytime soon?
Well, soon. We are looking at that, and it's all coming into the pipeline. I can't say that it's not going to be next week. I know that. If it's not later this year, then it will certainly be the beginning of next year. So just a little bit of patience, and we'll be there.
Great. Well, Gary, thank you very much for talking with us, and I wish you the best of luck with the new box set.
Thank you very much.
Procul Harum's Still There'll Be More, an anthology 1967 to 2017, is available now. The VVN Music Interviews can be heard via Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Stitcher, Google Play, Libsyn, and the VVN Music website. For the latest news on the veteran artists of rock, pop, soul, country, folk, and blues, go to vvnmusic.com. If you have any comments or questions about the website or this podcast, please send them to vvnnetwork@gmail.com. The VVN Music Podcast is a production of the VVN Network, copyright 2018.